Hello, our friends, Evolutionary, EEARTS, and Heart's Home family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, guys, this one I just we just got done with meditation. We made a video, and I just felt like this is so simple, so basic, and so obvious. But yet again, sometimes those are the things that kind of go right past us.
Sometimes those are the things that get forgotten with all of life's avalanche of issues coming down on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we look at everything that's going on right now, it really boils down, and again, please make sure you're subscribed to all three channels. It boils down to division, chaos, and dissension. Just when you look at all the different topics that are out there, all the faces that you're seeing, all the drama. I mean, it's all about one thing. And it's taking us away from who we are really at the core. Who are we really? So one thing you might notice on all of our channels is we're always saying this word, and we actually have a little wall decoration that has this saying right on it. Namaste. What does that mean? It means I honor the place in you in which the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, and of peace. When you are in that place in you and I am in that place in me, we are one. Yeah, again, it can be shortened, to say the oneness source, the God spark, the however you want to term it. That is within me, I see that it's in you as well. It's again a reference to the oneness of all things, as we're all part of this universal consciousness field, which is apparently divided, and everything that we see in the system that we find ourselves in is one of division and contestation. It's very much Darwinian. In that it's survival of the fittest. At least that's the way it looks. But the reality is something completely different. It's not that on the higher realms. And this existence that we find ourselves in is a temporary one. So if we want to talk about how to survive the apocalypse, it's simply just really truly remembering who you really are.
Mm-hmm. That needs to be worked through, speaking of the third density and things that go on that have an effect on your human body and your human psyche. These things, I don't feel they are to be ignored. I don't think that you're supposed to just look past them and pretend everything is okay. No, they should be recognized because they have a purpose, and their purpose is to guide us to a higher space. When we have these emotions that don't feel so good, then we need to stop and take a look at that emotion and give it some attention and try to figure out where does it come from. And I think that's where we are getting to the meat of moving up in vibration, not that it should be ignored. Like when a baby cries, you don't look at the baby and say, bad baby, don't cry. You don't do that. No, the baby is crying for a reason. And it's up to us to figure that reason out. And when we're going through traumas, it's the same thing. We need to get things figured out for ourselves so we can be bumped up and above that. But yeah, I'm just not one to believe in dismissing your emotions.
No, of course not. And this is all about exploring your emotions. Yet we have to recognize and realize that our emotions per se have been and are always being manipulated. And so, again, how does that happen? Well, it happens through attacks on the different chakras. And, as we know, so many people right now are moving from one place to another. Well, if there's no stability, you're not rooted. So again, that's the root chakra. And it's the same thing with the financial situation. It's always so up in the air. There's all this tension out there about the great crash that's coming. and the situation that we find ourselves in. Again, that is a root chakra thing. We can't get rooted. We see just waves of migrants and immigrants from all over the world for one reason or another, whether it's weather or war. It's all about uprooting us and keeping us, in a state where we can't sink our feet into the ground and root ourselves so that we can start to rise higher. We've shared with you before this, when you look up to the stars and you see what they say, well, you're just looking towards the center of the Milky Way. Yeah, it's also called the Great Rift. It's for a reason, because it is a leftover vestige of truly enormous battles that have gone on in our galaxy. And these battles are real, just like our emotions are real. You can't say our emotions aren't real. And again, emotions are energy in motion. And ultimately, what do we really have? Well, we are not really a physical body. The physical body is just simply a vehicle for this density, but we still are. We are the consciousness that inhabits the physical body. And yet there are true traumas that are both, related to our physical DNA and then also the spiritual DNA. We are ourselves, all of us are migrants and immigrants from other places. That's, part of the big reveal is, when we look at all the different tribes of humanity, we don't all come from the exact same place, but we all really are migrants, immigrants coming to Earth. And, the residue of these galactic battles resides within our souls. And really what we're doing now at this time period is we're working through all the trauma in order to heal ourselves to rise up to a higher density.
And that's going to continue to happen as we get exposed to more light. As we move into that photon belt, the light of information is going to come to us, and we're going to be able to sit with a lot of these emotions and let them resolve themselves, because they really need to resolve themselves before they go away. There is a book, I'm trying to think of it, and Emotions buried alive never die. Right. So when we go through ancestral trauma, when we go through our own trauma, if we just stuff those down, those emotions are going to go into things like your organ, probably the liver. And we really have to get in there energetically and diffuse that, whether it be through energy work, whether it be through your own work, trying to pull these up and release them. And guess what? Once they're released, it's like an automatic bubble and you get to go up. So it's quite a beautiful thing. And guess what? That's yours. That's something you get to keep with you beyond this 3D reality. And I think that's where it's really cool.
Yeah. And again, when we look at the core of the true teachings of the person that the world knows as Jesus, it was all about the heart chakra. Because again, our ability to manifest really, in many ways, it lies in the heart. And if we are to manifest a loving, positive world, we have to heal the heart. That's first and foremost. We have to heal our own hearts. So again, where does that lie? It lies with first giving forgiveness to all those that wronged you in any way, and then working past that and working out into healing the world itself. It's inevitable that this is going to happen because, again, the bigger wheel, the wheel of the yugas, is turning. Now, whether we choose to stay fixated in a version of a Kali Yuga, that's up to the individual. The natural order of things is leaving that behind, leaving the darkness behind. The greater sun is rising as we move towards the central sun, as our sun is coming into an area that is full of light. And ultimately, that's what we all are, is we're light. And again, we can manifest through sound. And this is why I personally feel it's so important to use the mantras. I did, over probably 1,000 something mantras this morning, and it totally changed my frequency. Again, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. And even if you don't necessarily feel like doing something, like say sitting there with mala beads and going through cycles of 108 repetitions, when you are asking for help, you will receive it. You have to ask first. Again, the benevolent beings will not just impose their will on you. So we have to ask for it. That's part of the protocol here. And again, I'm so struck. I remember those nights in this little desert town that I met this lovely lady in. And we would go and just drive the pickup truck out into the desert around the hills where there is no light from anywhere reaching. And you want to talk about spectacular. Looking up at the great rift in the night sky in the middle of the desert is absolutely spectacular. It's just amazing to see. And then you also, when you're out there, you recognize that we're not alone, because okay, that could be a satellite, that's a plane, I don't know what that is. That's something totally different. We're never alone. We've never been alone. When you leave this body, when you leave this vehicle, in most cases, you will be greeted by loved ones. You'll be greeted by beings that you may not have consciously known who they were in this life, but you'll remember them when you see them. And, a shout out to one of our absolutely most loved people in the world, Kristen, Big K, our special K. She lost her little Ro, that's her puppy, last night. Now, Ro lived a really blessed life. She was the equivalent of like a 90-something-year-old little lady. But it doesn't matter, because it always hurts when we are physically separated, because you can go and grab that person and hug them. You could grab that little pup and hug them. You could, again, scratch their head. You could give them a treat. Now, when they pass on, just like when I lost Zeke, and, it was very different this time with Zeke, because once I did Qigong techniques to keep a pet alive, and it did succeed in keeping them alive, but then I realized I was just keeping them in pain, and it really hit me, and I felt really, really bad about that, because, even though I wasn't ready to let that pet go, the pet was ready to jump to the other side. And so, little Ro was 17, so she had a long, long, blessed life with a fabulous mommy. And she was ready, to go. And so what does Cindy see? Cindy sees Ro on the other side, and she's nose to nose with all these other, apparent pups that she knew from before.
Yeah, she was having a meet and greet, and also it was really beautiful because our special K, her mom has passed not too long ago, and she was there as well, and she was taking care of Ro, and Ro said her hellos, and at the moment I can see her resting, and I'm not sure what K's mom and the color pink have in common, but there's always pink. So Ro is sleeping in a nice pink bed with pink pillows and pink blankets, and she's really, really comfortable. So it is a blessing to be able to see those things for people when it's allowed, and transfer that information, because that brought her some peace. And my gosh, we know her heart was so broken. It was so broken to let that part of her life go. But so many times when we think that something is ending in our life, really, truly, that's a new beginning.
And in reality, it is more going home than anything else, as we spend more time out of body than we do in the body. This is the smaller portion of things. This is the journey. This is the ride. This is the roller coaster. Again, that's the going home. That's the wakening up. This is the dream. And so many traditions know this. So many indigenous people know and understand this. This is just basic. And as Cindy has said, why don't they teach this stuff in school? Well, it's because it's not really what they want us to understand. They don't want us to understand the full reality of who we are, because then we can really, really manifest change, and this world could change in the blink of an eye. Once we get to a critical number point in awakening consciousness, the entirety of the system will just disappear from those that don't want to have any part of it anymore. It will disappear, and there is going to be another great rift, so to speak, on Earth itself, as we're going to have divergent paths, and there will be those that will allow the technology and everything into them, and there will be those that stay organic and go with the natural cycle of things, that trust in the bigger picture, trust in the true creator of this universe and the plans that were in place when this universe was created, as it is simply a place for exploration and growth. And that's a beautiful thing. So when we look to 3D and 4D, they are kind of intertwined together. And again, we spend more time on 4D than we do in 3D. And yet when we look to 5D, or what we would call fifth density, and this is where we're heading back towards, this is, the golden age of the Ascension cycle. Well, there's way more beings there than there are down here, because that's, again, a more normal state of being. We are the adventurous, crazy people that are on the roller coaster. Yeah, we're the ones that are on the roller coaster. They're the ones that are watching us, shaking their head and smiling and saying, wow, well, we'll welcome you home when you get back.
I know, I can see so many of my guides covering one eye saying, no, 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 like in a scary movie. But, you do learn to listen to those guides, and you learn to follow your instincts. And then you realize, as things go on and you learn in life, you don't have to keep subjecting yourself to the same things over and over. Once you realize a certain trauma and you understand the gravity of that, and you actually feel it in its entirety, and you resolve that, that's going to release you. It lets you go to another place. It shifts your perspective. And all of these things happen here in the 3D. When we are in these bodies, expansion is at its greatest and most important, because yes, these are all the things we get to take with us.
Absolutely. So there truly never is anything to fear, as when we exit the body, it's just going home, and we'll be greeted again by people that maybe in this life we didn't even realize that we knew, but boy, we'll know them when we see them, and it'll be a amazing time.
And one thing I just want to throw in there, I see a lot of great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents. They have no idea who, the people like me, I wouldn't recognize my great-great-great-grandfather, but he recognizes me, and he takes a great interest in me. So I see that a lot.
Yeah, and we have a little joke that Cindy shared with me over time, like she would do the little Tony thing, and again, she had an invisible friend as a little kid. Now she's always been able to see the dead that pass on. At times I can too, but it's much more hit or miss at various times, although I do seem to be developing clairaudience. That's interesting in and of itself, but Cindy could always see them, always. And so her dad at one point in time, even though her dad very, very gifted and trained as far as his psychic abilities, I remember her telling me that he said, no, honey, that Tony was never there. But the realization came in time that Tony was there, and Tony was a guide. But not only that, I'll let her share who Tony is.
A great-great-grandfather, Native American shaman, medicine man, very wonderful man. And I think he worked through a lot through my dad, and he taught me a lot of things through play, because that's how I learned what I'm doing today. It was all through play, but he didn't tell me what I was learning, so when I did figure things out, I was able to put the pieces together and say, okay, this was his quiet, safe way to teach me what I could do without my getting myself in trouble, because so many people are actually afraid of people like us with abilities. They just don't understand. And I get that. Just don't understand. And that's okay. And we're here to explore and try to learn and understand from one another.
Absolutely. So again, yes, surviving the apocalypse, we got this. We got this. As always, guys, thanks for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.